Hello, and welcome to the 5th annual gathering to celebrate women's health, research, and innovation. I'm Barbara Harrison, and I'm so happy and honored to join you as your host this evening as we acknowledge the work of those among you who have helped ensure that women will be equal beneficiaries of all the progress being made in the field of medicine these days. To that end, the Healthy Women organization, which, by the way, celebrates its 33rd birthday this year, continues to achieve its mission of educating women so we can make informed decisions about our own health. The organization also provides us with fact-based, expert-sourced information and programming, and perhaps most importantly, Healthy Women continues to keep women's health part of the national dialogue by raising awareness. And now, to tell you more about the wonderful success of Healthy Women and about its important impact on health policy in our country, I'd like to introduce you all to Beth Battolino, CEO of Healthy Women. Beth?
Hello, and good evening, and welcome. As CEO of Healthy Women, I am honored to welcome you to our 5th annual event celebrating women's health, research, and innovation. What a joy it is to see you all here in person. Before we begin our program, our thoughts and prayers are with the Ukrainian people, especially women and families, and all those affected by the attacks. With all the turmoil in the world, there have certainly been times when I really started to wonder if we would ever be able to do this kind of event again. Even given my medical background and understanding of the science through our work at Healthy Women, the last 2 years have been really tough, which is what makes it so thrilling to know that largely thanks to the incredible work of some of our honorees tonight, we are. Obviously, when planning this gathering, it was a toss of the die, to be honest. We chose our theme carefully, leading to International Women's Day in a few days. The focus on research and innovation, how this impacts women's lives and long-term well-being is, of course, because the development in these areas that we've seen, especially recently and during this pandemic, have been incredible. We've seen transformative outcomes for patients worldwide with the help of the COVID-19 vaccines and treatments and the attention that's been paid to the ways different populations, like women, have been affected by the pandemic, which has been crucial. Tonight, we will hear more about all of this, as well as the importance of patient advocacy research that specifically addresses women's health concerns, groundbreaking research by women in STEM fields, and much more. You can expect to learn a lot tonight and to hear about topics that should spark robust, timely conversations. After all, that's our specialty at Healthy Women. So I want to thank you again for being here. I also want to especially thank our diamond sponsor, Lilly, as well as our platinum sponsors, Hologic, Merck, and Viatris, and all of the other great event supporters who are true champions of women's health. Together, they have made tonight possible, and I cannot wait to dig in and to hear from all of our presenters and honorees, so let's do it. But first, I'd like to introduce Christine Varini, Chair of Healthy Women.
Good evening. I am so pleased to welcome you to Healthy Women's 5th annual event. My name is Christine Varini, and I am the Chief Operating Officer at Cancer Care and Board Chair at Healthy Women. Healthy Women is the nation's leading nonprofit resource for women. We've strived for more than 30 years to provide the best health care information to women and to answer their most personal and touching health questions. Women today are making many of the decisions, and that rings true for healthcare as well. We wear many hats in our families and communities, and Healthy Women aims to provide with up-to-date information and resources that not only educate, but advocate for women. So please sit back and enjoy this evening's program celebrating women's health, research, and innovation.
And now we get to hear from a voice you may be familiar with if you listen to a popular podcast on WebMD. You probably know his name and his voice. Well, now you're going to have a chance to see his face. Meet Dr. John White, the Chief Medical Officer at WebMD.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm delighted to be with all of you today. Isn't it great to be out and about here in the nation's capital and be able to see people? I learned this word this week, to see people IRL. Has anyone heard that? Why did I then just learn that? For those of you who don't know, in real life. So it really is a pleasure to be here. And I want to acknowledge Healthy Women for hosting this event, which is really about celebrating accomplishments in health, in research, and innovation. And it's really my distinct pleasure, for a variety of reasons, which I'll tell you, to present the Breakthrough Award this year. The Breakthrough Award is being given to recognize an organization for its collaboration, innovation, and achievement in response to COVID-19. We've all been greatly impacted by COVID, and I'm pleased to present the award to Pharma, the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America. And let's be practical. We would all not be here today, literally, without the work of the pharmaceutical industry. And we really should acknowledge that. You know, when you think about it, it's been about innovation, speed, collaborations, regulatory flexibility. I worked at the FDA, so I'm going to throw that in there. And partnerships. Think about it. The development of vaccines in record time and being given to billions of people around the world. And now we're also talking about therapeutics. When you think about it, this is the success story of the 21st century. It really is. And when we look back at time, we're going to acknowledge that. And Stephen Eubal is the president and CEO of Pharma and is going to accept the award on their behalf. And since I have the podium, I get to have a few minutes to say a few words about Steve Eubal, who I've known for more than 20 years. I was thinking about that today. You were one of the first persons I met when I came to Washington. Phyllis Greenberger is going to be mad at that. She might have been the second. But Steve also was one of the first persons I met. We both met when we were very young. And throughout these 2 decades of conversations that we've had many breakfasts together and lunches over the years. There's been a consistent theme of these conversations. And Steve has always talked about, how do we give patients access to new technologies, whether it's new devices, new drugs, new therapeutics. It's always been his focus in our conversations. How do we make people's lives healthier? And when you think about the past 2 years, they've taught us about the importance and the power of innovation and breakthroughs. So with that, I'd like to invite Stephen J. Eubal, President of CEO of Pharma, to accept the award.
Stephen J. Ubel. I thought my mother was maybe here, and I missed her on the way in. Well, thank you, John. It's just great to see everyone and be here. I was reflecting actually on the drive over that it was 2 years to the day that we closed our offices because of COVID, not, of course, understanding how long we would all be living the way we have over the last couple of years. But I do want to start by recognizing Beth. Thank you for your great comments, and John and Phyllis, who I must say Phyllis is probably the person in Washington who's hardest to say no to. I never have. I know many of you feel the same way. But I'm obviously just humbled to be here and accept this award on behalf of the industry, and want to recognize Healthy Women for all of your great work to ensure that women and families live healthy and better lives. As I reflect on the last couple of years, it really has been the industry's finest hour. I think everybody in this room knows that it's incredibly hard to create a new class of medicines. But it's a modern medical miracle to do it inside a calendar year. And you think about the early days of the pandemic, when frankly, John, the physician toolbox was bare. We didn't have a lot to treat patients. And as you look back on where we are today, we have 9 approved or authorized treatments for COVID. We obviously have the safe and effective vaccines. We have monoclonal antibodies, including one that was just recently approved to treat the Omicron variant. We have oral antivirals, and we have a lot of other additional research underway to target new variants. And as John mentioned, the Herculean effort to really ramp up production to ensure equitable access, not only here, but across the globe. And as I reflect on the last couple of years, it's just been an incredibly gratifying experience to work with our companies and to learn the lessons that I think we'll all be able to apply to other disease areas. You think about the incredible communication within industry and with other stakeholders, including regulators, collaboration. We had this great situation among our members where people really checked their competitive juices at the door and helped manufacture each other's products. You think about it, having Merck help manufacture J&J's vaccine, and having Amgen and Roche and others collaborate on the manufacture of monoclonal antibodies. And, I think we all rolled up our sleeves with the FDA and said, how can we make this faster, better, and more streamlined so that we can get to the same place as soon as humanly possible without sacrificing safety and effectiveness? So more collaboration, more communication, a greater sense of urgency. We're taking those things beyond COVID to other disease areas, and the industry is really making incredible strides. You think about the first gene therapy being approved in the last couple of years to treat blindness in kids, CAR-T, other targeted immunotherapies that are having such a dramatic impact on cancer, curing spinal muscular atrophy, potentially curative therapies on the horizon for wretched diseases like sickle cell and hemophilia. It's really an incredibly exciting time in our industry. I'm humbled to accept this award. I want to say in closing that all of these incredible therapies are worthless if people can't access them. And I appreciate John mentioning that. I've always been struck by the fact that public policy doesn't always keep up with the speed of innovation. And we have to make sure that our regulatory structures, our reimbursement structures keep pace, and that ultimately women and everyone can afford the therapies that are being developed. So we need to continue to think outside the box about common sense reforms that lower costs for consumers at the pharmacy counter and break down barriers for patients to access these therapies as they become available. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and congratulations on a terrific event. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you to all of you who work in the pharmaceutical industry for all that you've been doing for the past, centuries, but certainly in the last 2 years. It's been amazing to watch. Anyone who has covered the news here in Washington for the last quarter century, as I have, will recognize the name, the face, and the ethereal presence of our next speaker. You can't have covered anything on health and not know this woman's name. She's not covered just women's health, but health in general. Phyllis Greenberger is who I'm talking about. She is an iconic leader in advocating for more research, better education, and of course, greater interest and resolve to cure the ills that far too long have kept women's health on the back burner. Well, Phyllis moved those issues to the front burner, turned up the heat, and added what was missing. She didn't take her eye off the pot, but stirred things up to make the health of women a very hot topic on a lot of minds. Please welcome the Senior Vice President for Health Policy for Healthy Women, recognized as a thought leader in women's health for over 26 years. She's a Trailblazer Award recipient from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, among many other honors she has received during her years of fighting for advances for women's health. And here she is, Phyllis Greenberger.
Thank you. I must say, I'm going off script now, okay? It's so... This is really like a coming out party. I think it is so wonderful to see all of you in person, and it's so great to see all of you networking with each other. God willing, we're all healthy and safe, and everybody's going to be fine. But I'm very grateful, Beth and I are very grateful that you came and you joined us this evening. And I want to add my congratulations to Steve. Steve and I go back maybe 30 years, right? Okay. Even better than you, John, right? Anyway, so I'm honored to have the opportunity tonight to help introduce you to our 2022 Pinnacle Award recipient, Janet Mikulski. During our years of collaboration, I saw Janet up close and in action, and there's no one more skilled at building bridges between the pharmaceutical industry and nonprofit patient organizations. Janet's work to educate and increase capacity among these healthcare advocacy organizations has had a tremendous positive effect on the populations these organizations serve. As part of her efforts, Janet held monthly breakfasts, I'm sure many of you were there, at the Willard Hotel in DC, bringing together representatives from advocacy, industry, and government. We were able to network, brainstorm, cultivate relationships, and share each other's work. And perhaps most memorable were the breakfasts with Charlie Cook, founder of the Cook Political Report, who presented his election forecast. Those of us who were lucky enough to get an invitation will miss them, as well as the holiday breakfast and the poinsettias. We'll turn our attention to the screen to learn more about Janet.
Welcome, my name is Beth Badalino, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving as the CEO of Healthy Women. I'm honored to be here today to recognize Janet Mikulski and her amazing career as Senior Director of Alliance Development for more than 19 years. Under Janet's leadership, she successfully propelled Pfizer as an industry leader in the patient community. Janet developed strategies for the federal healthcare advocacy community, including organizations representing patients, consumers, seniors, women, nurses, veterans, and many, many others. Her successful programs, vision, and her leadership have been on advancing and serving the patient community. We thank Janet for always putting the patient community first, and so deserving of the Pinnacle Award. The Pinnacle Award honors outstanding people in the healthcare field. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear what her colleagues and friends have to say.
Hey Janet, we really appreciate this opportunity to give you a shout out from the National Grange. You've been a great mentor, a wise counselor, a loyal friend, and a guide for a lot of our health activities over the years.
Janet continues to leverage and honor the pioneer women who founded patient advocacy and alliance development, and to bring that same joy, empathy, and laughter as she mentors new and emerging leaders such as myself. Congratulations, Janet, and thank you for all that you've done.
Congratulations to Janet Mikulski on the first annual Pinnacle Award awarded by Healthy Women. I can't think of a more deserving candidate, somebody who has led the way for women's health and absolutely led the way for women like myself who've made our career in health advocacy.
Thank you, Healthy Women, for honoring her and her incredible body of work, her accomplishments, and her friendship to all of us.
On behalf of the National Hispanic Council on Aging, I would like to express our gratitude to Janet Mikulski for all her contributions to addressing the health of older adults, persons with disabilities, diverse populations. Thank you, Janet, for everything you have done and continue to do.
Thank you, Janet Mikulski, for all your many years of service at Pfizer and working with patient advocacy groups.
Janet, on behalf of the Health Council of Vietnam Veterans of America, we want to thank you and wish you the best for the future. And thank you for everything you've done for our men and women in uniform and for our veterans.
Janet, my friend and colleague, I'm so happy to join and distribute to you and your wonderful work for all this time, and congratulations on receiving the Pinnacle Award. Let's just say that you're a force of nature.
Janet, congratulations on this award and recognition for all your work in Advocacy Alliance over the years.
Janet, I can't think of a more deserving person than you to receive the first Pinnacle Award from Healthy Women.
I'm so excited that Janet is being honored by you. No one else has shone a light on all that patient advocacy can do to advance life sciences, access, and quality healthcare policies. From behind the scenes at Pfizer, where we worked for 25 years, she is the most committed, effective, creative, can-do person.
Congratulations, Janet, on winning Healthy Women's Pinnacle Award. You are so well deserved of this award. You've been a champion for patient advocates across disease state for many years.
Hi, Janet. In honor of you winning the Pinnacle Award, I wrote you a limerick. There's a fabulous chick named Mikulski who's led others without being Dulski. We urge COVID vaccine, but we don't make a scene, because Janet would give an Earfulski. Healthy Women thinks Janet is Kulski. She helps many and doesn't take Bulski. She's accepting the pinnacle and about to go mythical. So congrats, and don't get all tearfulski. Congrats, Janet. Great to know you.
Well, there isn't a whole lot more one can say about Janet that hasn't already been said. So I just want to add my congratulations and admiration for all the work that Janet's done over the years with all of us in terms of policy and advocacy related to health issues. And thank you all for coming and participating.
Janet is a woman of many talents and a true vision and a leader. She has an illustrious career, much of it with Pfizer, where she worked for 19 years as a senior director in the National Alliance Development arena. There she became a nationally recognized expert and an innovator in her field. Phyllis worked with Janet for more than 30 years, and she knows all of this very well. Our Pinnacle Award honors outstanding individuals in the healthcare field. With Janet, we have found and can now recognize one of the best. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Mikulski.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, that was emotional. And I will say, I'm so pleased that my family is here, my husband and my 2 daughters. We're very happy. And when they asked me why I was getting this award, I told them it was because I was the older person in the room and they decided to recognize me. So I'm not sure they'll believe that anymore, so we'll just see. But I'm so pleased to be here. I want to extend a super big thank you to Phyllis and Beth and Martha and the whole Healthy Women crew. The difference that Healthy Women has made in the health of women all over the country. And actually, as I thought about it, not just women, their families, their children, their everybody. They just do a fabulous job. And it's an honor to receive this award. I will, as I prepared some remarks, brief that they will be, my first draft I threw away this morning because I realized it was about me. And I thought, somebody said to me, we're in the iPhone world and it's all about I. And that what we do as an industry and as a community here is not about I or me, it's about we, and it's about how we can help make things better. And I will tell you that my career in patient advocacy started in a fairly typical Washington way. I was sitting on the Metro going to work, and Bob Allnut, and I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that name. Phyllis, do you remember Bob? No, I mean, Bob Allnut was the number 2 at Pharma, at the time PMA. And yeah, that was Bob Allnut and Jerry Mossenhoff were running PMA at the time. And Bob got on the subway and sat down next to me in Bethesda. And of course, as my children will tell you, I talk to everybody and anybody. So I start talking to Bob. And so he had been a client at one point, and we're chatting and we're talking about what they want to do in the patient advocacy space and how they want to take it. And I said, I shared with him some thoughts that I had, which were really about building the long-term meaningful relationships within communities and not the transactional, we have a crisis, can you help us? We have a crisis, can you help us? And we can give you a check if you want, and that to really go well beyond that into a space where you're really sharing mutual interests and desires. And at the end of our subway ride, which was from Bethesda to DC, Farragut Square, he said to me, send me your resume. I'd like to talk to you about coming to work at Pharma. And that was my entry into, he hired me to be the vice president of patient advocacy at Pharma. 3 months later, it took a while, but somebody said to me, Pharma's not changed. So sorry, I didn't. But so I was at Pharma for 5 years, and we really did try to create a different model where it was a long-term understanding and a depth of understanding of what's important to the patients, what's important to the industry, how do we work together in a really meaningful way. And it was about 5+ years later that I got a fabulous phone call from Nina Hill, who is here. Where's Nina? Oh, there's Nina. Nina Hill was at Pfizer and said to me, would you consider coming to work for Pfizer and helping us build out? Because Pfizer didn't have a national patient advocacy function at the time. I know that's kind of impossible to imagine, but it was 25 years ago, and yeah, it's right about 25 years ago. And they did a lot at the states, but they didn't do federal national advocacy. And so with Nina's help and with really the support of, the foundational work we did at Pharma, and then working with the leadership of Pfizer, who really said, we truly believe what's good for patients is good for Pfizer, and go out and do good things. And they said, you have a budget, you have people that can help you, go out and help the advocacy community get more sophisticated, more just ready to really do battle. Because candidly, we were talking about Part D's passage at the time it happened, and what we were terrified was, do we have insurance companies in the room? What we were terrified was that the insurance companies would end up really restricting a lot, through regulation, and that they had all the lobbyists that they wanted to be analyzing what was in the bill. I remember, oh goodness, I can't remember her name now. She was working for Kennedy at the time, and she came up to Pfizer and went through the bill with us. The bill was passed on the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. And on Monday, I was in New York with a bunch of people, and we were going through a detailed analysis. Of course, there were huge numbers of pages missing from the bill because they hadn't even been written before they voted on it. I mean, you know this. So, but what we were really worried about was that the patient voice wouldn't be there. And so Pfizer said to me, go forth and do it. Help them figure out how to make sure their voices are really reflected in the regulations that are written. And so I will say, I think the industry at large, whether Michelle over at Lilly and Kim at J&J or Kim Love at Amgen, I think the industry put their backs into this and said, we've got to make sure that the patient voices are heard and reflected in what's being put forth in these regulations, because it'll be really critical. Bob Blancato, had to be there talking about how this impacted seniors. And look at Martha. Why are you giggling, Martha? Yes. But I would just say that it is still very much a we. We have to work together because there's some huge challenges. I mean, I'm thrilled to tell you that my dad, and Pam knows this story, my dad was diagnosed with squamous cell that had invaded his skull 3 years ago. And he went to Hopkins. He's 91 years old now. So he was 88. He went to Hopkins. They removed a part of his skull. They tried to get the tumors out. They said, we just can't. It's too far invading his brain tissue, and we can't. Well, the wonderful news is the week before that, there had been a new infusion therapy that had been approved that was Regeneron's, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. Libtayo. A week before his surgery, Libtayo was approved by the FDA. And he would go in for an infusion every, 6 weeks, I think was what it was. And the tumors are gone. They are gone from his head. He is really, and it's things like that. Steve, I love the new ad. It hurts my heart every time I watch it. Because as a mom, you want to say, we got to keep going. We got to keep pushing. We've got to find the new treatments, the new cures. And as everybody knows here, I've worked a ton with Pfizer on the COVID vaccine, and it's enormous level of pride that we have in what was there, because it is why we're here tonight. Otherwise, we wouldn't be. But there's so many new battles that need to be fought, and we need to work together, and we need to not let the bad guys say to us, oh, you're with the industry. You're just saying that because you're with the industry. And we need to keep our eye on that, because as somebody actually from the Healthy Women's team interviewed me for an article, and they said, what do you think the biggest challenge coming up is? And I think that's it. I think that there are people that want to discredit your voices, and we can't let that happen. We have to make sure that everything we're doing is done for the right reasons at the right time, and that we don't let them, basically dismiss our voices. So with all of that, I would thank my husband, Alexander, who is a native of St. Petersburg, Russia, emigrated when he was 30. So as much as my heart hurts for the world right now, my heart hurts for the Russians too. Sorry, it's a really bad situation, and we as a world have to find the way out of it. So, with that, you guys are killing me. Thank you.
So, it's my honor to introduce Congresswoman Rosa Delauro, who, of course, I think needs no introduction. The Congresswoman was invited not only because she's a member of Congress, but because she was integral for the issue of women's health to come into the public domain. Her personal experience with ovarian cancer shone a spotlight on the need for a focus on women's health, and was instrumental legislatively in encouraging, or one might say forcing, the NIH to include women and minorities in clinical trials, and then female animals and cells in basic research. We would not be here if it were not for her. Please turn your attention to the screen to hear from Congresswoman Delauro.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Rosa Delauro, representing Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District. I want to thank my dear friend, Phyllis Greenberger, Senior Vice President of Policy, Advocacy, and Science, and say thank you to you for all you do and have done over your illustrious career to advance one simple mission: to educate women to make informed, healthy choices, to live well, and to age well. It is great to join you all at the Healthy Women's 5th annual event, celebrating women's health, research, and innovation. As some of you know, I am a 36-year cancer survivor, and I am alive today thanks to the grace of God, the care of hardworking medical professionals, and the power of biomedical research. As chair of the Labor, Health and Human Services and Education Appropriations Subcommittee, which funds the National Institutes of Health, and chair of the Full House Appropriations Committee, I have the opportunity and the responsibility to continue to support and invest in essential research. Research that advances human knowledge, improves our quality of life, and has the power to lead to a medical breakthrough that will not just save one life, but potentially millions over generations to come. My story is why I have long believed that access to preventive services is critical, particularly for women's health. Now, I must admit that Congress has not always been the friendliest of places for women. When I was first elected in 1990, 4 years after surviving ovarian cancer, I was fortunate to secure a seat on the Appropriations Committee in 1992. Then, there were only 3 women on the committee: Nancy Pelosi, Nita Lowey, and me. We banded together and we vowed that we would fight in the Congress to protect the interests of women in America, particularly women's health, because cancer had struck so many women down. And one of the things we did was to get the National Breast and Cervical Cancer Early Detection Program funded. And it made a difference. Now, as chair of the House Appropriations Committee and the subcommittee that funds this critical program, which celebrated its 30th anniversary just 2 years ago, I am very proud to continue advocating for its funding and so much more when it comes to women's health. We still have much work to do, but I want to thank all of you for your commitment to women's health and for standing with us in this fight. Keep up the great work you are doing to advance women's health and being an outstanding resource. You are all helping to keep women's health as part of the national dialogue by raising awareness to decision makers about the impact health policy has on women and families. So please, stay loud, stay engaged, and remember, Congress is an institution that responds to external pressure. So continue making your voices heard and do not take no for an answer. Thank you.
She was great, wasn't she? I like her hair. Was that just the lighting? Or is it, she really has blue hair, it looked great. I'd now like to invite Natalie Buford-Young, the CEO of Springboard Enterprises, to the stage. Springboard's mission is to accelerate the growth of entrepreneurial companies led by women through access to essential resources and a global community of experts. Please welcome Natalie Buford-Young.
Hello, I'm Natalie Buford-Young. I'm the CEO of Springboard Enterprises, and thank you, Healthy Women, for your great work. I'm so glad that I could join tonight and celebrate the research and innovation that you all are doing around women's health. For 21 years, Springboard has been supporting women entrepreneurs building innovative companies in life sciences and women's health. I'm exceptionally proud that the next 2 speakers tonight are Springboard alumna who are making an impact on women's health through their leadership, determination, and innovation. I'm pleased to introduce you to Valerie Palmieri, whom as of last week was elevated to the board, the executive chair of the board for Aspira Women's Health. Congratulations, Valerie. Valerie has spent the last 30+ years in the diagnostic laboratory industry, serving in numerous executive leadership positions for both laboratory service and consulting organizations from the Fortune 100 to startup organizations. And fueled by heartbreaking patient story after story and the realization that 50% of the women in the room who've been diagnosed with ovarian cancer will die from their disease, Valerie is an advocate for ovarian cancer funding, research, and awareness. In her current role, Valerie is transforming women's health with the discovery and development and commercialization of innovative testing options and bioanalytical solutions that help physicians more effectively assess risk, optimize patient management, and improve gynecological health outcomes for women. With staggering statistics in hand, Valerie has led Aspira to focus on closing the ethnic disparity gap in ovarian cancer risk assessment to make sure that all women have access to the best care. Valerie is committed to driving progress around early detection and optimized treatment plans, resulting in dramatically improved patient outcomes. Unfortunately, Valerie was unable to join us live tonight, so let's hear what she has to say, share in this short message.
Thank you, Natalie, for the warm introduction, and good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Palmieri. I am the Executive Chairwoman of Aspira Women's Health, and I'm here to show you the research and innovation and the progress we're making in terms of ovarian cancer risk assessment. Our mission is simple. It's to transform women's health for all women, regardless of your age, race, ethnicity, or economic status. It seems like a simple task, but today we are utilizing technology that was really built for who had access to care 40 years ago, which was primarily Caucasian women and postmenopausal women. When you look at the disease itself for ovarian cancer, what you see is a very high death to incident ratio. It's over 60%. And when you look at the disease in terms of when it is detected, the majority is found late stage. So we have a situation where we're finding it late stage, where the tumor burden is so high, and the chances of survival are only 27 to 30%, versus we find it early stage, we can actually beat the disease, which the survival rate is 75 to 93%. So like most cancers, it's all about finding it early. So what is the root cause and why are we finding it so late? It really comes down to the tools that doctors are utilizing today. Clinical assessment, which is physical exam and ultrasound. We're using blood tumor markers that are over 40 years old or tumor markers only. And we also have tissue analysis for most diseases. You have a biopsy. But in the case of ovarian cancer, it is not recommended to biopsy your pelvic cavity and requires really surgery for detection. Here at Aspira, we are looking to solve this with a multimodal approach. And our original technology actually was developed with the Department of Defense, utilizing DoD funding and Johns Hopkins. We are now creating technology with the help of academic institutions that's multimodal, looking at proteins, age, menopausal status, symptoms, genetic status, and additional technology, genetic technology specifically. And right now we're working on a high-risk screening product with the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, which will be for those women with and without a mass that are genetically predisposed. And there's more to come on that. In terms of the technology today that is offered in the US, and we have a sales force that calls on the GYN physicians, we have technology today that can detect early stage risk 98% of the time versus the current technology today detects 69% of the time. We've actually taken it a step further in terms of early detection, and we're looking at the difference in the technology for the different races and ethnicities. We now have studied the Filipino population because of genetic predisposition there, which is 1 in 80, the Israeli population, which is 1 in 40, and also we've looked at the Black population here in the US. Here is an overview of 2 publications, which we demonstrate that OVA1 will detect 79% of the cancer, while the current technology on the market today can only detect 62 and 54% of the cancer. So we have a very high miss rate with the current technology that is most commonly used today. So how are we going to change that? It really comes down to people being aware of OVA1, but more importantly, ensuring that payers understand and basically state that this test is medically necessary. So right now we have 58% of the lives covered in the US, and this has been a journey over the last 5 years. We right now have Medicare coverage for 100%, and we've got Medicaid credentialing of 80%. So we're slowly making our way to 100% of the population will have coverage and will have access to this technology. So in closing, our call to action is to help us change the reality for ovarian cancer. As stated previously, it's the only gender-specific cancer with greater than a 50% mortality rate. Right now, breast cancer, 1 in 10 women die. 1 in 2 women die with ovarian cancer. So we need to ensure if a woman presents with a pelvic mass and they are planned for surgery, that they get access to the OVA technology. Black women have a much higher mortality rate, which is a combination of healthcare access, as well as utilizing technology that was primarily developed for who had access to healthcare 40 years ago. We need to change the rate of funding for ovarian cancer Today, ovarian cancer receives 36% less funding than prostate cancer, as an example, but yet prostate cancer survival rate is 98%. Every day, think about this, every day 60 women are diagnosed where 1 in 2 die. Every day, 38 women die. The best thing we can do is know our bodies in terms of being the first line of defense. We as women take care of everyone else, but we forget about ourselves. So know you're normal. We have an acronym called the BEAT, which is bloating, eating feeling full, abdominal pain, or frequent urination, trouble with bladder. If you have more than one of those symptoms, more than every other day for 12 days, you need to see your GYN. You need to raise your hand and state this is not normal. It starts with you knowing your body. It starts with you knowing the symptoms. It starts with you passing that word to every mother, grandmother, aunt, sister. We need to ensure that we catch this early and that we are aware that there is technology that can make a difference in terms of detecting that risk as early as possible. So thank you for listening to this short overview. Have a wonderful gala. And again, I'll catch you at the next one next year. Thank you all and have a nice night.
Next, I'd like to introduce Catherine Liao. Catherine is the CEO of Blumio, a medical devices startup building an innovative wearable blood pressure sensor that is giving the century-old blood pressure monitors an overhaul. From early on in her career as a systems engineer to scaling the World Health Organization's web infrastructure during SARS, to leading technology platforms at Cisco and Riverbed, Catherine's passion lies in using technology to solve unmet needs. She believes that intuition, hustle, and know-how are the trifecta of success. As CEO of Blumio, Catherine is executing on that trifecta and driving the development of a new wearable blood pressure monitoring platform, solving an unmet need in maternal health. With Blumio's innovative sensor, expectant mothers will be able to use a wearable device to measure blood pressure non-invasively and continuously. It is my pleasure to welcome Catherine to the stage.
Take a breather to be here in the room amongst giants. I'm so humbled to have the opportunity. So good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Liao. I am the co-founder and CEO of Blumio, a medical devices startup developing a blood pressure monitoring platform to improve cardiovascular health outcomes. Now, I'm also trained as a health economist, which means that I can deliver a talk without sneaking a couple pie charts into my presentation. Aha, there we go. Many of you know that cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women, killing more women than all forms of cancer combined. However, I also want to make sure that you don't think that heart disease is an old person's illness, because it's also the leading cause of death for new moms, over 50%. To improve cardiovascular outcome for women, we need research and innovations in diagnostics and treatment that can address the biological differences between men and women, because our hearts function differently. Now, unfortunately, less than 1% of healthcare research and innovation dollars is invested in female-specific conditions beyond cancer. And even for cancer, that's 4% of total dollars. So I'm here to invite you to join me to continue the fight that Phyllis has started and challenge that status quo. So first and foremost, by being here tonight, you are showing your support for women's health, and I thank you for that. Second, there are wonderful researchers and innovators that can use your help, whether in time or money, people like me. My team has developed a solution to monitor the onset of preeclampsia during pregnancy, a condition that 2 out of 3 pregnant women is at risk of. The solution anchors on a wearable blood pressure sensor that my team has developed, which makes it possible to measure and monitor blood pressure at night without impacting sleep, something that's very important to all of us, especially those who are expecting. So with that data, we then built a personalized health profile for each expecting mother to proactively monitor deviations and anomalies during her journey of carrying the baby to term. Our solution will augment the current standard of care and improve maternal health outcomes. And beyond maternal health, our innovation can be applied to all cardiovascular health conditions and impact anyone with a heart. And with that, I want to just let you know that we are raising an $8 million round to take the solution through clinical trials and regulatory approval. And so if this is something of interest to you, or you can help, or you know someone that can help, I would love to have a chat with you after. Thank you.
That invention sounds incredible to me. I have a daughter who just had a baby. She's a doctor, a young doctor. She suffered from preeclampsia. Without running back and forth from Brooklyn into New York to a different hospital, she probably would have lost the baby. It would have been great if she'd had your machine. I have a few dollars. Not a lot. But we have a beautiful new baby that's visiting us right now, and thanks to medicine. But I think it would have been a lot better had we had your machine. And now I take great pleasure in introducing a film provided by L'Oreal, which features the 2021 Women of Science Fellows.
I'm the first Black woman to receive a PhD in physics from Yale University, and I'm really indebted to those that helped pave my way.
I'm so proud of you. It's just amazing to me what you've become. You're a doctor.
Thank you. My grandmother had limited opportunity growing up, and through her hard work, only 2 generations later, I'm at Lawrence Berkeley Lab, working among Nobel laureates and answering big questions, hopefully. So in the lab day to day, I'm working on the design of a new type of detector to measure these elusive particles called the neutrino. Despite their elusiveness, neutrinos may be the key to understanding why the universe evolved in the way that it did. I'm really hoping that this current experiment will be one for the record books. Physicists in general are imaginative in that we seek to make the measurements that never have been made before. Engineers typically give us a little bit of a hard time in that we're, daydreaming about doing the impossible, but sometimes we make it work, and that's when, revolutionary measurements are made.
How is it that something that's smaller than the width of a human hair can have impacts on the entire planet? As a microbiologist, I study some of the smallest living things on Earth. I study bacteria that live in soils. Many antibiotics are produced in nature by soil bacteria, and we know how these antibiotics work from a health perspective, but we really don't understand what they're doing in soil. We can't make a prediction about how something will respond to an environmental change, say a warming climate, without understanding how the small pieces fit together. We need soils to continue to feed our planet. That's a huge motivator for this work. There's always an urgency to science as a practice that lets us examine the world, ask questions about it, and try and make it better.
Hey there, little frog. This is my favorite frog. It's great getting to work with this really cool and charismatic species every day. As a neurobiologist at Stanford, I study how the infant brain works, but I do this in poison frogs and their tadpoles. With every visitor to their nursery, tadpoles make a life or death decision on whether or not that visitor is someone that can feed them or someone that is a predator and potentially wants to eat them. And the tadpole makes a decision and then will beg for food by doing this really rapid body vibration. These tadpoles are great because they're translucent during development, and so we can actually see their brains developing. I love using art to communicate my science. I draw cartoons and comics of the animals that I work with, and I can use those to tell stories about the research that I do. The biggest contribution I want to make in my career is getting other people interested in science.
There's a lot of room for individuality and self-expression in both chemistry and music. Once you master the basics, you can start asking the question, how can I change this to make it more interesting? As a materials chemist, I'm trying to discover something that can improve the electronics of the future. All the cell phones and personal electronics we use today are based on a technology called the transistor, which was invented back in the 1940s. What I'm trying to create in the lab is a material that could replace transistors for next generation electronics. Knowing that the materials we're making in the lab could one day have an impact in enabling new technologies is really exciting. It's also really fun to be surprised constantly by chemistry, by what these materials do.
Part of the reason my science is so fun is that in addition to being in a lab and doing chemistry and experiments, which I love, I get to work in these beautiful places and to know why it's so important that we understand them. A lot of people hear biogeochemist and they think it sounds like 3 scientists in a trench coat or something, but it's actually one field, and it boils down to understanding how ecosystems work. I think about the way carbon and nutrients cycle and move through ecosystems like tropical forests or deserts, and I also think about how human actions affect those cycles.
Ooh, nice.
It's a really powerful tool for us to break down super complex and pressing environmental issues like climate change into things that we can measure. We don't exist in isolation from these places. We rely on them for clean air, for clean water, for the food that we eat. And it's critical, it's foundational that we understand the way that they work and how they're predicted to change in the future. Diverse voices are not just helpful to science, they're an absolute necessity in good science.
To date, there are something like 100 Black women with PhDs in physics, full stop. I'm lucky to work with physicists and engineers from all over the world. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. We love doing what we're doing, and that's what unites us.
The world needs science.
And science needs women.
Because women in science
have the power to change the world.
It's great to see what's going on around the world. A lot of very, very interesting things. What a wonderful film. L'Oreal continues to support the work in science that benefits women, and it's so great to see that since we spend so much money on L'Oreal products. They ought to be helping us. And now that I'd like to say goodnight myself, I'd like to bring Beth back to say a few words as we take it out. It was very nice being with you. I love talking with those of you that I had a chance to speak with, and look forward to coming next year.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What an evening it has been. All of us, thank you. All of us at Healthy Women are overjoyed to have had the opportunity tonight to celebrate our honorees and recognize the importance of innovation in women's health. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy lives to join us in person this evening and make this event such a success. I now want to invite you to please enjoy the food and drinks we have set out in the hall and to mingle with your fellow attendees. We hope that we've given you lots to talk about. Thank you again for coming.